Welcome to the deep dive. We're absolutely thrilled to have you with us today because we're opening up a document that completely changes how you look at ancient texts.
Yeah, it really shifts your whole perspective.
It really does. So the source we are analyzing today is titled The Architecture of Revelation, Surah Al-Baqarah, a structural and philosophical synthesis.
Quite a mouthful, but a fascinating read.
Exactly. And our mission today, together with you, is to decode this massive text. It's often called the Peak of the Quran or Sanam ul-Quran.
Right.
But we aren't doing like a standard theological review here.
No, definitely not.
We are going to explore its incredibly precise architectural structure, its deep psychological taxonomy of who we are as humans, and the historical warnings it holds that act as a direct mirror for our modern behavior.
It's a very structural approach.
Yeah, okay. So where do we even start with a structure this massive?
Well, we start by looking at the physical blueprint of the surah itself, to understand exactly how the text is organized before we even get into who it's addressing.
Right, the macro view.
Exactly. Because the structure is the message. There is a macro blueprint here, which is two ummas, or nations, beautifully balanced within one surah.
Okay, so how does that break down?
The first half, which is verses 1 through 152, is addressed primarily to the former ummah, specifically Bani Israel.
Right.
Then the second half, verses 153 to 286, shifts entirely to address the current ummah, the ummah of Muhammad.
It literally reads like an architectural master plan.
It really does.
And here's where it gets really interesting. I was looking at what happens at the exact mathematical midpoint of these two sections.
Oh, the Qibla shift.
Yes. It's the change of the Qibla, the direction of prayer.
And what's so fascinating here is that the author treats this shift not just as a historical event, but as the central load-bearing pillar of the entire text.
Right. It's the exact midpoint of the surah.
Yeah, and it dictates the change of the prayer direction from Jerusalem to Mecca.
But why place that specific event at the exact center? I mean, it feels like more than just a geographic pivot,
Oh, it is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you see that the Qibla shift is the ultimate symbol of the global transfer of spiritual leadership. The text calls it Khilafat.
Okay, wow.
Think of it like a massive building-changing ownership. The physical center of the text structurally enacts the passing of the baton.
That makes so much sense.
And if we zoom in from that macro view to the microarchitecture, specifically looking at the first half addressing the former ummah, you see it's built in three very distinct blocks.
Like the foundation, the walls, and the roof.
The analogy holds up perfectly. Block 1 is the philosophical core.
The foundation.
Right. It provides a condensed summary of the entire Quran's philosophy and a complete taxonomy of mankind's psychological states.
Okay, and block 2.
Block 2 is the indictment. It opens with an invitation but is followed by 9 sections of severe historical reprimand.
Wow, so like a very harsh structural audit of their performance.
Exactly. And finally, Block 3 is the transfer of power. It is the formal eviction of the former ummah and the structural installation of the current one.
So we have this incredible structural blueprint, but a building is completely empty without its tenants.
Right, someone has to live there.
Exactly. Who actually inhabits this structure? Because in that first foundational block, the text literally categorizes all of humanity.
It does.
It tells you that no matter what era you live in, you fall into one of 3 distinct psychological profiles.
It is a brilliant taxonomy. First, you have the Munafiqeen, the believers.
Okay.
Their inner truth is absolute conviction in the unseen, and their outer expression is tangible, action-like, establishing prayer, spending, and charity.
So they are the solid, reliable tenants who maintain the building.
Exactly. Then you have the complete opposite, which is al-Kafirun, the disbelievers.
Right.
Their inner truth is arrogance and vested interests. Their outer expression is open, hostile rejection.
They refuse to enter the building at all.
Yeah, and their ultimate result is that their hearts are sealed. The warnings literally just bounce right off them.
But the third category, this is the one that really gets under your skin.
The al-Munafiqeen, the hypocrites.
Yeah.
The author gives this visual of the nafaq, which is a tunnel with 2 exits. Hypocrites want an escape route to appease both the believers and the hostile powers.
Right, trying to play both sides.
Exactly. And the root cause of this hypocrisy isn't necessarily like cartoonish villainy. It's a creeping disease of character. It's weak willpower.
Weak willpower. Interesting.
Yeah, the hypocrite actually recognizes the truth, but they utterly refuse to sacrifice their vested interests, their social standing, or their worldly comforts to uphold it.
So their outer expression is claiming belief verbally, but the moment actual sacrifice is demanded, they fail.
They are the dry rot inside the load-bearing walls. They look structurally sound from the outside, but they crumble under pressure.
Wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Because when we hear the word hypocrite, we imagine a very conscious, intentional liar. You know,
Right.
someone twirling their mustache and plotting to deceive people.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But the text introduces this concept of a blind spot, doesn't it?
Yes, that is the most dangerous part of the diagnosis. The source points out a specific phrase, wam mayashurun, which means, and they do not perceive it.
Wow.
The majority of hypocrites do not wake up and think, I am going to be a hypocrite today and deceive my community.
Right.
They genuinely view their moral compromises as wisdom and tactics. And what's worse, they look at true believers, the ones making actual sacrifices, and view them as foolish fanatics.
That is absolutely terrifying. Operating under complete self-deception, genuinely believing your lack of moral character is actually just you being practical or playing the game.
It really is.
It makes you wonder how many times you or I justify our own cowardice by calling it pragmatism.
It forces a severe inward look for sure. And this raises an important question.
What's that?
If the structure is going to be inhabited by humans who are prone to this kind of dry, rot, arrogance, hypocrisy, weak willpower, why give them the keys to the building in the first place?
Oh, that's a great
The
point.
text actually rewinds to the cosmic prologue, to the very origins of humanity to answer that.
Right, the groundbreaking ceremony for the entire planet, the concept of Khilafat, or delegated divine authority.
Exactly.
So God announces the plan to place humans in charge of the earth. But hold on, I always thought angels were supposed to be perfectly obedient beings.
They are.
The source notes that the angels actually object to this plan. How are perfectly obedient angels arguing with God?
Well, it is less of a rebellion and more of a deeply logical plea for understanding the structural integrity of this new creation.
Okay.
The angels ask, will you place those who corrupt and shed blood? They understood the inherent danger of granting a creature free will.
Because free will means the ability to choose wrong. It means the ability to destroy the building.
Exactly. And God's response is so profound. He says, I know what you do not.
God grants humanity the ultimate compounding asset to justify the immense risk of freedom.
Right.
And that asset is knowledge. But it's not just one type of knowledge, is it?
No, the source breaks this down into dual engines of human knowledge.
And keeping with our architectural theme, I look at it this way. The first engine is acquired knowledge. The text calls it ilm yul azma.
Yes, empirical scientific knowledge,
Yeah.
processed through the senses and intellect.
Right, so acquired knowledge is the building materials.
Yeah.
It's the cranes, the steel, the concrete, the sheer technological power to construct massive societies, split the atom, build artificial intelligence.
All the tools.
Exactly. But then there is the second engine, revealed knowledge, or wahi.
The divine guidance.
Right. This is the absolute moral compass
Mhm.
provided directly by the creator. It's like if acquired knowledge is the engine of a sports car giving us immense power and speed, revealed knowledge is the steering wheel.
I love that analogy.
Because if you have the engine and the speed, but you completely ignore the steering wheel, you don't win the race. The human driver just turns into a tyrant and crashes the car.
That synthesis is spot on. Mastery over the forces of nature must be strictly governed by submission to the creator's blueprint. If you have the building materials without the master plan, you get the exact bloodshed the angels warned about.
So what happens when the tenants ignore the blueprint? When we misuse that free will?
The text gives us archetypes to explain this, comparing the ultimate failure of Iblis, or Satan, with the failure of Adam.
This is a crucial distinction, because both of them disobeyed. Both caused structural damage to their own standing.
Right, but the outcome was entirely different based on how they handled the failure.
How so?
Well, Adam felt profound shame. The text uses the word nadama. He admitted his fault, felt regret, and sought to repair the cracks.
And as a result, he was forgiven and elevated.
Exactly, but Iblis, he added arrogance, or istakbara, to his disobedience.
He didn't just break the rule, he tried to intellectually justify breaking the rule.
Right. He used false intellectual logic to validate his rebellion. He basically claimed the cracks he caused were actually superior design features.
Oh,
He said, I am better than him, I am made of fire, and he is made of clay.
The core lesson here is so profound. Causing structural damage. Committing a sin is a human inevitability. We all fail.
Yes, we do.
But intellectual arrogance, attempting to philosophically justify the damage so you don't have to feel guilty about it, that is the true demonic trait.
And when a whole society adopts that demonic trait, it leads to what the text calls the atrophy of faith. Qaswat ul qulub, hearts harder than rocks.
And the source transitions here to the historical audit of the former Ummah to show exactly what this looks like in practice.
Yes, it gives two glaring examples of how they tried to essentially lawyer God.
Loopholes.
Exactly. The first is the Sabbath violation. They were forbidden to catch fish on the Sabbath.
Okay.
So instead of just obeying the master plan, they used technical loopholes, or hila. They set their nets on Friday night and pulled them in on Sunday morning.
So they were pretending to obey the letter of the law while entirely violating its spirit. It is so relatable today. It's like finding a technicality in a modern terms of service contract to justify your selfish desires. You know exactly what the intent of the architect was, but you find a workaround so you can feel self-righteous.
Lawyering the Creator is exactly what it is. And the second example reinforces this. The story of the cow.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
They were given a very simple command, sacrifice a cow. But instead of saying, we hear and obey, they infinitely delayed obedience by asking endless pedantic questions.
Right, like what exact color, what age, what specific type.
Exactly.
It's weaponized pedantry, delaying submission through endless intellectual questioning until the spirit of the command is completely lost.
And when a nation mocks divine law through these technical loopholes and pedantry to serve their base desires, the consequence is that their spiritual foundation literally petrifies.
Which brings us to perhaps the most intense part of this entire deep dive, because these historical failures aren't just ancient bedtime stories.
No, they establish a universal law, or sunnatullah.
And this law applies equally to the current ummah. The past is a mirror for the present.
Exactly.
So this brings us to a mathematical formula the source introduces. The bracket equation, it says. Salvation equals faith in the final messenger multiplied by a bracket. And inside that bracket is historical favors minus historical rebellions.
Right.
Wait, my math brain is struggling here.
Sure.
If my historical rebellions heavily outnumber my favors, that bracket becomes a negative number. Does that mean my salvation is negative? How does that work?
The mathematical logic here is actually deeply sobering. It means your historical privilege works against you if you misuse it.
Wow.
The overarching demand positioned outside the bracket is that you must have faith in the explicitly appointed messenger of your era.
Oh.
But inside the bracket, the math tells us that the more favors you were given, the more wealth, divine intervention, or clear guidance you received, the heavier the penalty for rebellion.
That makes sense.
If your rebellions outnumber the immense favors God gave you, the multiplier drags your spiritual net worth into an absolute deficit.
So you can't just coast on the fact that your community was previously favored.
Not at all. And this structurally refutes modern fallacies like perennialism.
Which is the idea that simply believing in God generally and doing some good deeds is enough, even if you deliberately bypass the master plan given to your specific era.
Exactly. The equation simply doesn't compute without that multiplier outside the bracket.
And inside the bracket, the former Ummah received massive world-altering favors. They were saved from tyranny. The sea was miraculously parted for them. They received heavenly food.
And how did they counter those favors? With the golden calf.
Right.
With cowardly refusals to fight for the promised land, and incredibly by complaining about the heavenly food and demanding garlic and onions instead.
Trading the divine for the mundane. And this is where the mirror effect comes in.
Yes.
And you know, it's wild looking at this source because you could easily project today's headlines onto this text.
Oh, absolutely.
But I want to be really clear with you, the listener. Whether you lean left or right politically, you can see these patterns everywhere. But what the author is doing here and what we are doing isn't taking a modern political side. We are strictly impartially reporting what the source lays out.
Right. The text is strictly holding up a historical mirror to show that God's architectural laws do not change.
Exactly.
The source draws a stark, unyielding comparison. In the past, the former Ummah altered their scriptures and used technical loopholes for worldly gain.
And the present?
In the present, the current Ummah distorts the clear meaning of the Quran to justify interest-based economies, bribery, and cultural sins.
Wow. In the past, they killed their prophets who brought inconvenient truths.
And in the present, societies persecute, jail, and silence their greatest modern scholars and reformers, the Mujahideen.
The ones who dare to speak out and point out the dry rot in the building.
Exactly. In the past, they paid lip service to unity, but constantly spilled each other's blood.
And today, nations profess a global brotherhood, but engage in endless sectarian and nationalist wars. The structural failures are identical.
There's a chilling quote from the Prophet Muhammad included in the source that says, "You will follow the ways of those before you step by step."
Step by step. It brings this heavy realization that absolutely no group has unconditional immunity just because of their label or their lineage.
The universal law dictates that if you accept the rules of the blueprint that are convenient and ignore those that require sacrifice, the penalty is structural collapse.
Which manifests as disgrace in this worldly life, political humiliation, and powerlessness.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean?
Well,
If both the past and the present struggle with the exact same arrogance, the exact same hypocrisy and loopholes, how do you and I diagnose the true state of our own building? How do we know our foundation isn't riddled with that blind spot of hypocrisy?
the text provides an ultimate litmus test for that.
Okay, what is it?
It starts by identifying the core delusion, which is the claim of unconditional chosenness. People develop this delusion that the hereafter is exclusively theirs, completely bypassing the requirement of actually maintaining the building through righteous action.
Right, the we're saved no matter what mentality.
So the Quran issues a staggering challenge, a test. It says, if the hereafter is truly yours, then wish for death.
Wow. Put your money where your mouth is.
Because the reality is, the ultimate diagnostic sign of a corrupted faith is an intense, unyielding greed for worldly life. The text calls it ahisa nas hayat.
Unyielding greed for worldly life.
Yeah. People with a corrupted faith are terrified of leaving this world. Why? Because deep down, they know the poor quality of the materials they have sent ahead.
They know their building is full of dry rot.
Exactly. A true believer, on the other hand, views this world merely as a temporary construction site and the hereafter as their completed permanent home.
It is a brilliantly exposing test. Because you can fake your words, you can fake your outward compliance, but you cannot fake what you are truly, fundamentally attached to.
No, you can't.
Are you frantically clinging to the scaffolding of this earth, or are you preparing to move into the final destination?
It strips away all the architectural excuses we build around ourselves and leaves us looking directly at the foundation of our actual intent.
This has been quite the journey. We started by looking at a macro blueprint, marveling at the structural engineering of a text that shifts the axis of global leadership at its exact mathematical midpoint.
We examined the dry rot of hypocrisy hiding inside the walls and explored the cosmic risk of giving humans the building materials of knowledge without forcing them to follow the master plan.
Right. And watched what happens when intellectual arrogance causes us to lawyer our creator.
And we ended up staring into a stark historical mirror that proves this ancient scripture is fiercely, almost uncomfortably relevant to you and your daily moral compass.
It warns all of us against our own self-deception.
It reminds us that the architecture of Revelation isn't just a historical monument to admire from afar. It is an active diagnostic tool for the human heart.
It really is. And it leaves you with something heavy to carry with you.
What's that?
Well, if the ultimate sign of a corrupted faith is this unyielding greed for worldly life, this sheer terror of leaving because of the sins we've sent ahead,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder.
Under what?
Is our modern society's obsession with, leaving a legacy and endlessly biohacking our way to longer lives and freezing our bodies in hopes of cheating mortality,
Oh, wow.
is all that actually just a mask?
A mask for a deep-seated, unspoken terror of the hereafter.
That is the exact question the blueprint demands we answer. A huge thank you to you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning the structures around you, and more importantly, the structures within you. We'll see you then.